Hello, Cody. Am I pronouncing your last name Zervas?
Yeah, Zervas or
Zervas.
Smith, either one. It's fine.
Or Smith?
I'm joking. It's
Oh, okay. I was like, I get it. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate you hopping on a call with us today. You don't mind if I'm recording and if I use this, share it with other people?
no, absolutely record away. And thanks so much for having me. It's good to see all of you.
Yes, we just did a workshop on compatibility. So you helped to frame the topic for today. I thought let's just keep it on topic. And we talked about sort of how I conceptualize compatibility and complementarity and how those go together and having both elements. And so looking at it from a human perspective and how that may compare and contrast with your method at Keeper. And so I gave you the questions that everyone provided to me to kind of prep you with those, and curious to see what you have to say, because some of the people that had those questions are not here anymore. They had to leave or they weren't able to attend, but we will keep this recording for them to refer to and share with them this conversation. So yeah, hope we
Yeah,
didn't put you too
absolutely.
much on the spot.
No, it all sounds great. I mean, yeah, you were obviously generous enough to give me those in advance, which I appreciate. If you want to throw any other spontaneous ones at me, I'm happy with that too. But do you want me to just run through those, or do you want to pose them to me here? How do you want
Yeah,
to do?
I can read them to you.
Sure.
So can your AI dating service do a better job of finding a highly compatible match than a professional matchmaker or even the individual themselves?
Yeah, almost certainly yes. Um, if you don't mind, actually, I want to, because some of your other questions are going to get at a similar point, and I think it'd be really helpful if I start by sort of establishing a framing that we can then refer back to and to
Absolutely.
answer this question, but also some later questions. And that is like, I think it'd be really helpful to establish like what is even the problem, right? Like what is the problem that we are trying to solve? We meaning Keeper, but also us as people who are dating, trying to find our long-term partner,
Yes.
right? A lot of people don't realize that the essence of the problem is how extreme the numbers game really is. And so, for us to match you, the reason that dating is hard, the reason that matchmaking is hard, is because, you know, you and any individual who's dating, this is true for almost anybody, is very complex, right? And so like there's a lot of points, we call them points of compatibility that you need to match on in order to be a really great match for any given person, right? So that can include anything from values, politics and religion, personality, intelligence, lifestyle, the type of relationship dynamic that you want, interests. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? And a great partner is going to be aligned with you on most or all of those, right? And so just the fact of that means that the person that you're looking for is probably very, very rare. Probably one in 50,000 or one in 100,000, somewhere on that order of magnitude. That would not be abnormal. That's what we typically find. Um, and some sort of quick back of the envelope math confirms that. And so as soon as you realize that the person that you're looking for is actually that rare, it follows immediately that the strategy you're going to have to use to find them is not going to be sort of one of the ones that's out there. What that means is that we need to understand, you that deeply, but we also need to understand 50,000 other people that deeply, right? And so that's the problem. We have to go deep and wide. There are options out there that can do one of the other, right? So your typical dating apps, your Bumble, your Tinder, whatever, they can go wide. You could probably swipe through 50,000 people over the course of 6 months if you really put your mind to it. But I mean, first of all, that's gonna be probably fairly miserable for most people. And also it's super shallow, right? So you're swiping past these people, making quick judgments based on photos alone or whatever, right? And so the chance of, you swiping right past your perfect match or them swiping right past you is ultra high. And if you want to vet deeper, you have to go on a date. And who can go on 50,000 dates, right? And so that's an example of going wide but not deep. There are other options. Conversely, like they can do go deep but not wide. That would be like a traditional matchmaking service would be an example of that. So, a traditional matchmaker can talk to you for hours at a time. They can get to know you really, really well. They can go deep, but again, they're just one person. There's no way they can do that for 50,000 people. So realistically, they're going to have a pool of maybe a few hundred. And, the chance that your perfect soulmate marriage quality match is in that pool, very small. And so, they'll know it's not a great match, but the best they can find might be bad or mediocre at best, and they'll force that match because it's all they have. Anyway, so I realized I was a little of a winding answer. Apologize for that. I'm going to get back to your question
No, it
now.
was great.
So your question is, do we give you a better chance? Almost certainly, we have the best hit rates in the industry. 1 in 10 of our first dates lead to marriage. About 40%, 1 in 2.5, lead to a long-term committed relationship. And the reason that we're able to do that fundamentally is because we can solve that deep and wide problem. And the only way to solve that is with tech, right? And so we have, this algorithm that we use, and happy to get into the details of actually how it works in a minute if you want to. But the essence of it is that we use AI and tech to be able to search, deeply and also very wide. We can do that depth of search on 50,000, 100,000, a million people if we need to, so we can find that one needle in the haystack that you're looking for. Um, and yeah, that's really the essence of it. There's just nothing else out there that can do that kind of search.
So fascinating. I love the way that you word that, though. It makes it so clear. I think before even just having you, not to derail you, but before having you on, like there's like a lot of ambiguity, but even without knowing all the ins and outs of the tech, that just makes a lot of sense. That you can go both deep and wide, and that you're not ignoring the depth part, because that's exactly, the problem with hookup apps or dating apps or whatever, the traditional mainstream ones. So, you know, having that intention and value around getting to know the person really, really well is the cornerstone of finding a compatible match. That's just, you can't just ask people what they desire, what they want. That's not how it works. That's what I've found in my matchmaking business. But I don't have the reach. I don't have the width, the what do you call, the breadth or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I love to. I mean, I don't want to derail us from here, but I'd love to double click on what you just said a little bit. When you say that you can't just ask people what they want, do you mean, yeah, can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, because people usually project like some fantasy of what they're looking for, but it's not
Sure.
actually congruent with who they are, what they need. So in the work that I do, and doing the personal work first is clarifying that, increasing self-awareness. And once you know that they've sort of excavated themselves so that they know and corrected, and often is the case, they've had to correct what they're looking for, because it it it's like gonna fail. Like whatever they're looking for is not actually going to be successful for them.
Sure. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I will say, our fundamental thesis is based on a good amount of research that shows that people's stated preferences around long-term dating are actually fairly accurate. I mean, certainly not perfect, but fairly accurate in terms of like, if you actually just show somebody the person who matches 95% plus of their preferences and what they say they're looking for, there's a good chance that they'll fall in love with that person. Now, I do totally agree with your point, which is like that, doing that internal introspective work that you need to get fully aligned and be able to articulate exactly what you're looking for, and make sure that it's not the manifestation of some other quick impulse or something is certainly important. But for the most part, I think people tend to be fairly on target. They're more accurate than they aren't. And that's how we're able to make the matches that we're able to, because we try to do as little. One of the sort of fundamental tenets of like a lot of most, I would say, traditional matchmakers is this sort of attempt to uh, get people to settle for something different. And not saying that's what you've done, or I shouldn't settle is kind of a loaded word, but get people to change their preferences, right? And for most, I would say, not all, most matchmakers, that's a downstream consequence of the thing I said, which is that, well, they don't have your perfect match in their pool, so they're going to try to get you to settle for somebody else. And yeah, so I mean, basically, long story short, it's like if you actually do have the perfect match, well, just that's better. Just offer that, right? And most of the time that works. Not every time, but
It's
yeah.
interesting that you say that, though, because in my experience, matchmakers are projecting your fantasy. They're like trying to get you to get exactly what you dream of. And that's where they fail, because it's usually superficial. They don't, to me, that's been my experience and what my clients have reported. But have you talked to Date Psych? Alexander?
Yeah, we know him well.
Okay, because he does. Yeah, I thought you guys were associated because he's recommended you guys too. He's done a lot of or talked about a lot of the research that shows that actual realized matches are very different from stated preferences. Didn't Has that come up in conversation with you? So like the people will say they prefer this, but then the realized preferences are very different.
Yeah, it depends on what like where you're looking where that data is coming from. I'm guessing, so I don't know exactly the study you're referring to, of course, but I'm guessing that's almost certainly at least in large part a product of a selection bias, right? Like if you're just looking at the outcomes, if you're taking a specific like traditional matchmaking service and then just looking at those outcomes that they generate, of course those outcomes are going to be, predominated by matches that were not, you know, that were not perfect because just by statistical chance, like almost none of the matches that they're offering are perfect. And so any of the successes that work out are going to fall into that category, right? But their hit rate would, what you're not getting is the counterfactual, which is that if they would have been offering higher quality matches, would their hit rate be much higher? And the answer is yes, right? The dirty secret for most matchmakers, I don't want to overgeneralize because there are some good matchmakers out there and happy to explain. There's a very small percentage, and I'm happy to explain why a small percentage are able to make it work. But generally speaking, for the most part, most matchmaking services out there, your Talkify's, your 3 Day Rules, um, their hit rates are incredibly low. Hit rates meaning, first date to LTR or first date to marriage conversion rates. They're in the, single digit or lower percentages. And they won't tell you that because obviously it's, if they did, you wouldn't sign up. But for the most part, the outcomes aren't good. And so yes, you can cherry pick and go, okay, well, of the 2% of matches who worked, were they willing to settle? Yes, they were. But
I guess there's a fundamental premise distinction here because I feel like you can call it settling if you want to. But to me, I see it as unrealistic expectations,
okay,
right? So, like the whole point of the research that I was looking at, that DateSec was also talking about, was that people say they want this whole thing, but who they actually end up marrying successfully is very different, and that's because they were just projecting this fantasy of unrealistic expectations onto people of things that they didn't actually need. They were more focusing on preferences, not deal breakers and non-negotiables. And
okay,
so you could call that settling if you see not getting all your preferences as settling, but I don't see it that way. I see it as focusing on what you need and focusing on the non-negotiables, the things that are essential, and
sure.
trading off preferences is just a reality. But yeah, I've used the example often. Like if you have 10, you know, options that are different levels of the long list of what you want, if you had the same person but stacked the preferences, of course you're going to want the person who's got the most preferences, right? Like if we were in an ideal world. And so if you're looking at, 50,000, a million, 5 million, 10, a billion people, and you're able to scale it out that large, so you can get all the ideal matches out there in the world and compare them, and your AI can say, here's the best option, then sure, that's great.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think we're disagreeing. I'm not saying that people are, yes, does everybody want to design their perfect Build-A-Bear spouse? For sure. And it absolutely the reality of dating and matchmaking is it's a trade-off space. And, for every sort of point you're allocating to make them more beautiful or handsome or taller or smarter, or whatever, you're trading off against something else. Inevitably, that's true. But I do think generally speaking, like, another way to think about it is like direction versus magnitude, right? So I think for the most part, like our data shows this, and I think the research shows this pretty well. Like you can trust people fairly well on direction, meaning if they say that they're looking for somebody who is a morning person, they're probably right, right? Versus how much that's important, like the magnitude, the weight of that. Yeah, there might be that like they're really focused on somebody. They just want the hottest person in the world, and in reality, they're willing to settle for a 7 if they get everything else that they want, and they're going to be most happy with that person. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. So yeah, definitely part of the art of it is figuring out like what's good enough, what's going to make them happy, and then how can we use the remaining like points that we
Yeah.
have, so to speak,
But
on other areas.
let me add this layer too, because this is
Yeah.
important, right? Like there's a big difference between you having the framework and asking them specific questions that are already evidence based and them then answering according to their preferences versus leaving a person up to their own devices to decide for themselves what they're looking for. Those are two different scenarios.
Okay, you mean giving them a framework with like say, saying, okay, we know lifestyle is probably important to you. Tell us what within that category. Giving them the categories, is that what you mean?
Right. Like if they're filling out a questionnaire, you're what is the term? Like it's a biased question, like a you're leading them. You're leading them. You're giving
Right.
them the questions. Whereas if you just leave them up to their own devices, like what do they actually put on dating apps is retarded. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like
Sure.
that's not effective in finding like a good match often. Like they need a lot of help with their dating profiles. But because you're giving them the actual framework to respond to, then I think that what they say is going to be much better.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Some, and some there's a spectrum, obviously. Some people are better at, um, have done more introspection and are better at this than others. And certainly the people who have done the most and are the most self-aware tend to get the best results. So don't disagree with that at all. Our approach is we tend to try to do both. So we try to give you that scaffolding, and give you that framework to work within, but we don't force you to color inside the lines. So if you have done that introspection and you know that you're looking for this niche specific thing, and you know that's what you're going to be happy with because you've done that work, we want to give you that freedom to articulate that as well.
So can you explain exactly how the logistics of Keeper AI work? Like if someone wants to go onto your website, what is the process?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, right now, you know, the whole idea of Keeper is that we've created it as a human in the loop matchmaking service. So we have matchmakers, we have tech, of course, as well. The matchmakers are accelerated by the tech. Um, and so if you want to sign up, basically you just go on the website, keeper.ai, and there's a little button that says get matched. You can go through the onboarding flow as a man or woman, and it'll ask you the initial set of questions. And then once you finish that, you're in the free pool right away, which means that you're eligible to be matched. And right now, there are two tiers of service. There's, free and paid. And, the basic difference is, well, there's two basic differences. If you're in the paid pool, you can just match with more people, so it just expands your search, thereby increasing your chances of success. And then also you get to work more closely with the matchmaking team. So you'll have a personal matchmaker assigned to you. So it's like active search versus passive search. But in any case, you just go on the website and answer the questions, and you're in. And then you'll have the option to sign up for paid if you want. That's obviously totally optional. I will say one quick thing, which is that we do have a big summer launch coming up. We're going to be launching a whole new tier of service that's going to be 100% automated. The AI has just gotten so amazingly good that we're going to be able to roll it out as a fully automated self-serve product. So everybody will be able to get the same search distance as the people who were previously paid, which will be amazing. And what that'll mean is just that the time to match will be much faster. So right now, I would say, our accuracy is incredibly high, but the only downside, and I always like to be transparent about this, is that sometimes it just takes a while, right? To ensure that level of quality, sometimes it can take, after you sign up, it can take weeks or in some cases even months to get your match. And almost everybody is super happy once they do get their match. It tends to be really, really high quality, but waiting those, 6 weeks or whatever isn't always the funnest. So after this summer, that should be cut down to hours or days rather than
Nice.
weeks.
Here's a random question.
Yeah.
Do you feel, I'm curious to see if you agree with me or not, but either way, that the more average a person, the easier it is to match them?
Yes and no.
Okay, tell me about this.
Yeah, so it's easier from one perspective, which is just that, like, if you're a simpler puzzle piece, there are more puzzle pieces that fit you,
Yes.
right? Which I think is what you're alluding to.
Hmm.
The part where I would say no is just that, sometimes what that can actually mean is that actually they have just haven't yet either done that introspection or haven't yet articulated the results of that introspection. So actually, they are a little bit more of a complicated puzzle piece. They're just not articulating it very well, right? And so that's a little bit trickier because, like, you're more just throwing darts in the dark. But uh, but yeah, generally speaking, yeah.
Totally. I agree there. Okay, so let me this is where I didn't know if this question was relevant because I think it came from Siddharth, but where are you finding the women? You're not finding women, right? It's people are signing up, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now our matchmaking is entirely inbound, meaning we only match with people who are in our system who have signed up for Keeper. We're not like going out on the internet or finding people or anything like that, which is something that some matchmakers do. Our users come through a number of different channels. I would say the three biggest ones are first one is like word of mouth. A lot of our users come just because, you know, people are they get a match. It's a really high quality match. They're excited. They tell their friends, and then their friends sign up. The second one would be SEO, like people just an organic search, like people search for, matchmaker and they find us and they sign up. And that's great because those tend to be really high intention people. I mean, the first category is high intention as well, but right, these are people who like they knew what they wanted, they set they're committed, they're taking dating seriously, they know what they want, and they go out and try to find somebody who can help them find that person. And then the last category of the three biggest ones would be we make these like different tools for people in the dating space. The most well-known one is the preferences calculator. So you might have seen it. It's gone viral a few times. Drew Barrymore
Oh.
talked about it on her show. It's just like you can enter the
Oh.
demographic information of the person you're looking for, and it'll tell you how rare they are. But
Oh
people
yeah,
find
yeah,
those, and
yeah. I have seen that. Okay, that was you.
yeah, that's us. That's us. So people use those, and they find us through that.
Very cool. Okay, so you're not vetting people to access Keeper AI. You're just the tool is vetting them for compatibility with each other.
Yeah, that's basically right. I mean, the only vetting that happens is like, we want to make sure you're a high intent sign up, right? So if you have, can I swear? If you're a half-ass, if you're a half-ass, you're not taking it seriously, right? If you're a half-ass sign up and you like, yeah, your account will be shut down. But as long as you take it seriously and like you answer the questions seriously and you upload
Mhm.
real photos, yeah, then you're absolutely welcome to join. And then the only vetting is happening at the match level. It's like, yeah, we're gonna try to match you with the person who you're ultra compatible with.
Okay, and what is the like how many users do you have?
About 250,000.
250,000. Okay. And that's probably going to grow substantially in the next 5 years.
Oh yeah, I would expect so. I mean, we've already been growing exponentially. We're only just over 2 years old, or about 2.5 years old now.
Yeah.
So, and we've grown exponentially in that time. I don't expect that to slow down.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And on to be honest, like I am vehemently against dating apps, but you guys, I have constantly said, I know of one that is reputable and credible and that seems positive. So I have mentioned you several times as like an exception. And
Appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to find out like more about you. And like I said, I went on, but because I'm in a relationship, like it just shows my like anniversary date, but I wanted to see if I could go in and fiddle with it so that I could share like with people what it's like. But
Sure.
I don't know if that's possible, but
It is. It certainly is, and I would be happy to like give you a tour if you want. I think what you're talking about is just a totally separate app that we made, which is one of our little tool apps. It's
uh-huh.
called the relationship tracker, and that's totally separate. So if you want to check out
Okay,
the
okay.
actual matchmaking
Yeah, yeah.
service, keeper.ai is where you want to go.
Yeah, it's a good fidelity test for marriages, right? Go on Keeper AI and do the thing and then be like
Yeah,
funny. Yeah, for sure. I think that'd be a good skit.
don't do
Um
that. We're very pro marriage, everybody. Like,
yeah,
If
no,
you're if
no,
you're
no.
happily married, we're not.
Yeah, we don't want anyone who's catfishing on Keeper AI, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think this was actually Jay's question. Sorry, Jay. Question three was without disclosing anything proprietary, how specifically is your AI being used for matching and how do the outcomes compare with those of other algorithms?
Yeah,
The
great question. So, yeah, happy to share quite a bit of information on this. Stop me if I go too deep, but yeah. So basically, way I would summarize it is that we have a three-layered search process. And so before we even get into that, let me actually start or even earlier. The very first step is when you sign up, you're going to tell us, all this trade information about yourself, right? All the basics, like where'd you go to school? How old are you? How tall are you? Just this and that, right? Where'd you grow up? And what religion are you? What are your politics? Just all the basics, right? What are your interests? And then we're going to ask you your preference information. And so we're going to give you a little bit of scaffolding, like you said. We're going to try to direct you, keep in mind this is trade-offs, give us a sense of what's most important and least important, rank your preferences, and that sort of thing. But we're also going to keep it fairly open-ended. So, if you want somebody who's vegan, you can tell us that. If you want somebody who's also on the autism spectrum, because you are, you can tell us that. If whatever it is, right? It's kind of open-ended. You can tell us what you're looking for. And then once we have all that information for you, then we enter, that three layer search process that I was talking about. So the first layer is just a quantitative algorithm. Nothing like fundamentally special there. It's most dating companies have something like that. Happy to explain why I think ours is better. But no secret sauce. That's just eliminating the obviously bad matches for you based on a quantitative basis. So they're way too old for you. They're way too short for you. They're completely incompatible religion. Just obvious like numerical deal breakers. Um, that's the first layer. The second layer is AI. So this is where the secret sauce is. So we have various AI models that are specifically trained to do different aspects of the matchmaking process. So we have some models, for example, that are vision models, and they're really good at looking at photos and identifying not just things like attractiveness, but also specific traits that you say you might be looking for. If you say, I really want somebody with blue eyes, or it's important to me that they're, physically fit, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It can identify those quite accurately. It's pretty amazing. And then that'll be taken into account. We have other models that can read your question responses and reason about those. They can understand your psychometric data. We collect a lot of that, big five test scores and various personality tests and so forth. They can understand and reason about those. And so altogether, these AI models will evaluate, you know, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of potential matches for you, and they will all the ones that haven't been already eliminated, and they will rank order all the matches in the pool for you from best to worst. And then, after this summer, that'll be mainly it if you're just on the full self-service plan. Um, right now we do have that third layer, which is the humans in the loop. We have a human matchmaking team that sort of assure that last layer of quality and human diligence and sort of do this digging in process where it's like, okay, you said you wanted somebody thoughtful. We think we have this home run match for you who meets all your preferences and you meet all of theirs. And let's just double check and make sure that like, yes, they are thoughtful in precisely the way that you cared about. And so a big part of our process, we call it disambiguation. It's follow-up questions. It's like this digging in. It's like,
Disambiguation.
what do you mean by thoughtful? What is that? How does that manifest to you? What do you mean by you want somebody who gets along with your family? Well, what is your family actually like? What would it be like if a person got along with them? And then we figure that out, and then we go check with the other person. Okay, we figured out that like, your family is really loud and boisterous. We have a match in mind for you. This now we're talking to the other person. We have a match in mind for you. Their family is really loud and boisterous. Do you feel like you could get along in that environment? What? And we'll ask those types of follow-up questions to like verify. Um, but yeah, that's the high level. Happy to dig in on any of the specifics if you want.
Two questions came up though, which might be a little bit of a tangent, but I don't want to lose them. What's the proportion of men to women on your users?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. Right now, it is skewed female, and it's about like I said, we have about 250,000 total users, and like just over 200,000 are women. Um, and so it does skew pretty heavily female. Now, that's a direct consequence of our marketing. We've actually kind of specifically designed our marketing thus far to appeal to women, and that's just because right now our paid clients tend to skew a little bit male, not that extreme, but just a little bit, and so it sort of just makes sense from a business perspective. I do think that's going to even out over time. Like you know, Pew Research shows, for example, that like while there is a little bit of a natural skew just out in the dating market naturally, like serious long-term daters tend to be a little bit female. About 36% of women are exclusively looking for a long-term partner versus about 22% of men. So that natural skew, I think, is always going to exist a little bit, but it shouldn't be 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 or anything like that. And so, absolutely do expect that to just sort of even out over time as we continue to grow.
My other question was, do you find, or from, your experience with this business, do you like the one thing that your business model can't do, like Keeper can't do, is confirm chemistry? Like, would you say that's about accurate?
Okay, well, Uh, yes and no. So the quick answer, I don't want to be the guy who's super long-winded on everyone, but yeah, chemistry's hard, right? Like, and of our matches that we offer that don't work out, the number one sided reason is je ne sais quoi chemistry. So in that sense, yes. Now our hit rates are still really high, so we are able to get it to work a lot of the time. But of the ones that don't work, yes, that's the most commonly cited reason. I do think that we're going to continue to get that figured out because I do think that like chemistry, it's not magic. It is you can decompose that into some things. You can understand sense of humor, you can understand personality, you can understand values, um, and you can understand attractiveness. And if you can address each of those, intelligence, if you find somebody who's intellectually compatible, they have similar personality, they have similar values, they have a similar sense of humor. Like if you can get all those things, they have similar interests. Like that's most of what we mean when we say chemistry. And I think we're only going to get better and better and better at being even more specific and super high resolution on that. So yeah, chemistry is hard. It's the hardest part. Chemistry. It's the hardest
Yeah.
part of matchmaking, no doubt, but we've already mostly unlocked it, and I think we're gonna, I don't want to say fully. It'll probably never be
Hmm.
100%, but we'll probably get pretty close within the next year or two.
It really fascinates me, and I'm excited to, because I'm very feminine, but at the same time I'm very logic based, and so
Sure.
I like that side of things too. And the way that what came to mind for me is, and forgive me if I seem a little bit assertive here, but
No, I like it.
you might have to get really creative with the science and do it in a different way. Like I'm thinking of, I talked a lot about harmony today. So if you think of like the two people as different tones, and chemistry is really creating that harmony with two tones
I like that.
together, right? Like you might have to find a way to translate a person's blueprint into a tone, and this other person, and then which ones actually merge together to create a harmony.
Sure. It sounds like you're alluding a little bit to like sort of a little bit like an opposites attract sort of thing, where people can have complementary personality profiles versus just identical ones. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm being more literal, like interstellar here. I'm saying,
Okay.
like, if there's a scientific way to translate someone's personality into a musical note,
Okay.
then you can figure out which notes actually create harmony. And that's
Sure.
probably very similar to what chemistry is.
Sure. Yeah, I actually think that like this is a little bit more, complex than what you're talking about, but I think it's the same basic idea, which is that like, with the dawn of AI, what AI is basically doing is it's taking, language and encoding it in vector space. It's basically just translating it into math and then doing all these fancy calculations in the back end and then translating it back into language so it's readable, right? And so certainly a big part of what we do, part of our AI models is, when we have our users write a huge amount of information, right? Basically these essays about themselves, based on all these prompts that we're asking them. And there's a ton of information there, not just the literal information, not just like I am a morning person, but also the way that they articulate themselves, the way they express themselves, right?
Yeah.
And once we are translate that all into math, that is basically what the AI is doing. It's going, here's this incredibly complex set of math equations that now represents this person. And then here's this other incredibly complex set of math equations that represents this other person. And what it very literally means when they are compatible is that it's not just that, like, oh, I'm a morning person and this person is a morning person. It's also like all those subtleties that are difficult to articulate about how they're talking and the length of their sentences and the type of vocabulary that they tend to use and the way that they, right, all of those subtleties that are just intrinsic in human communication, but that are hard to
Mhm.
like actually put into words and capture. Those are all being reflected in those complex mathematical equations that
Yeah.
nobody is really 100% familiar with. So and that resonance when they match,
Hmm.
these two people are a major third or whatever. I
Yeah.
think it is a
Music is
very
math. Math is music.
it's the same thing. Yeah. So I really think that it actually is kind of exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the movie that there was a movie about that like ages ago about this little boy that I forget, but I need to like search for this movie and remember it because it was so beautiful, but it's very much like that. It's bringing it into the science, the math into a musical expression.
Totally.
And yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me through my feminine framework.
I like it. I like it. As a musician myself, I
Ah,
I
cool.
I I, I endorse.
Well, I want to open it up to everybody because Jay, I know those were particularly your questions. Do you want to dig deeper and have any follow-ups with Cody or anybody else? Kurt, BJ, we got some technical people here.
Hit me with whatever you got, guys. Harder the questions, the better.
Hi, I know this is not a hard question, but
Easy
I
is
just
good
want
too.
I'm assuming like you're subscriber based like platforms. So do you
No.
have like a okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you want to, we were not subscription based, but please finish your
Oh,
question.
okay. So I was thinking, do you have like a monthly fee for like people who subscribe to you and stuff like that? I just wanted to know like how much you charge the paid clients who are actively looking for a mate.
Yeah, yeah. So that's real. I'm glad you asked that because that's a really important thing to us. Um, we call it incentives alignment. Like one of the intrinsic problems with the dating apps and most matchmaking services, certainly not all, is that they're very not incentives aligned, meaning like they get paid for the wrong reasons, right? So like if you sign up for Talkify, you pay $5,000 or whatever it is. I think it's that for 3 dates, and they get paid regardless of whether those dates are good, right? Or, yeah, Bumble, it's like if you sign up for Bumble Premium or whatever it's called, like you're paying a monthly subscription, which means that they're incentivized to keep you on the app, not to get you, not to find you your spouse,
Right.
which would take you off the app, right?
Right.
So all these other platforms have misaligned incentives. We pride ourselves, one thing that's really important to us is that we have aligned incentives. So we only get paid if we succeed. So the revenue model is this might change a little bit. It'll never be not incentives aligned, but we might tinker with this a little bit this summer when we do our launch. But as of right now, if you want to sign up as a matchmaking client, you sign this marriage bounty contract, which says that you'll pay when you get married. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a little pricey right now. It's $25,000 at the time of marriage. So you pay that when you get married to the person that we introduce you to. Now there also is I should just, in full transparency, there is a little bit of a per per a per date component, which is like you'll also pay for the date as well. A small percentage of that just means that you have skin in the game. Um, but yeah, so compared to some matchmakers, that's cheap. Compared to others, that's expensive. We're sort of mid-range when it comes to matchmaking services. But yeah, I realize that's a bit expensive for some, for many. And that's just reflects the fact that like the matchmaker puts in dozens of hours to ensure that this is like a stellar home run match that you're probably going to marry.
But that's just
So
for paid users?
just for paid, yeah.
Okay.
Free users are, as the name implies, totally free.
Okay. Okay.
And this summer, when we, just to be clear, when we do our full launch, like if you're hearing that number and you're like, oh my God, Cody, that's, I would never pay that. I never could pay that. Understandable. It is a little bit of a premium service right now. That's why we're working so hard to get this launch live this summer. And when that comes out, it's going to be substantially reduced. I don't know exactly what the price point will be yet, but it'll be somewhere closer to like $250.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
good.
thank you. That sounds good.
Thank you, Kay. And Jay wanted, he put in the chat just to emphasize the demographics of the users. Do you find that you have a lot of people in rural areas signing up?
Yeah, we have a good number. Our users tend to cluster just generally where the population does. So we have the most users in cities, but we certainly have users in rural areas. Yeah.
Some of my clients are definitely locked into their location because they have homesteads and things like that. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, we tend to be pretty popular among like the homesteading community and such. A lot of the communities that are just intentional daters, we do well with. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. Location is one of the biggest factors when it comes to dating, just for obvious reasons, right? Like if you're in New York, there's just more people around you, so you just get more chance, more shots on goal. Um, so, if you're willing to date long distance, if you're willing to be matched with people across the country, and fly potentially to meet them if it's going well, then that's how you solve that. If you're locked into your a rural location. So, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like if you're rural, it's going to be harder, even for us, for anybody. But it's not impossible. We do match rural people, and yeah,
I think we've pretty much covered the questions and we're at half an hour now, but I did want to share
cool.
with you that I think we're very aligned. Obviously you have the tech and the breadth that I don't, but I think it sounds like my assumptions were correct and that you were aligned on the science. And even though mine is implicit and yours is, it's there, tangibly. But I have in my Instagram subscription, I'm trying to funnel people into my Instagram community, which is this subscription. And I have like 60 odd people in it. And I have matched 3 couples successfully. One is already married and 2 are well on their way. So at different points in that
That's awesome.
process. So I think my rate is pretty high because I use a lot of the same ideas that are your app is based on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely think we're aligned. And I think you're benefiting massively in that case from the fact that these are people who have self-selected into your audience,
Yeah.
right? So these aren't just, when I say 1 in 50,000, 1 in 100,000, that's like general population, right? If you're just walking
Right.
on the streets of Manhattan. But if you're selecting from a hyper narrow, self-similar pool who are there because they're aligned in values, they have similar personality, they found you because they're similar types of
Yes.
people, it's going to be, it's going to make all the difference. And so, yeah, that is absolutely this is some of the advice that I just tend to give to people. I mean, this is on one perspective, age old advice that's going to be nothing new, but in the modern world, it can be a little bit, which is like, yeah, if you can find those pools, find the niche community that most accurately represents, as close as you can find it, your unique puzzle piece, then
Right.
that's going to give you the highest chance of success for sure. Those are going to be good
Exactly.
people.
And I've been matching clients longer, but it's been harder to kind of organize. So this is kind of my new system that has been effective and makes it more organized.
Yeah,
So I just keep, I'm not trying to make a living off of matchmaking. It's just something that I
sure.
end up doing because, yeah, like you said, my clients are aligned. So it works.
That's awesome. I love that you're, I know about you a little bit. I've enjoyed your content. I watch your YouTube videos. I didn't actually know that you did matchmaking. So that's awesome that you have those success rates. And yeah, I think everybody who runs a small niche community should, because why not? It's a great way to provide amazing value to your community. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Cody. I think it was Jay writing you a note. He said, yeah, thank you for your answers. All very interesting. So we all appreciate your time and your diligence in responding to our questions. I feel like I have a better idea. How does everyone else feel?
Oh yeah,
Good?
I know people that I'm going to recommend this to. I'm coupled right now, but
He's one of
they're
the
gonna hear
success
about it.
matches.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, congrats on being matched, John. Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate the question, you guys. Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Burrowes. Thanks to everybody for your questions and for listening. If you have any other questions, please feel free to hit us up. You can hit us up on the Keeper, Twitter page, obviously just at Keeper Match, or you can hit me up personally, Cody Zervas at modern_meeting on Twitter. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Happy to go deep with anybody who wants to. So yeah, appreciate you listening, guys.
Will there be
Awesome.
an Instagram page anytime soon? Sorry, I left Twitter like
There is one, but it's not really developed yet. I found it.
Yeah, we do have one. It's a little bit less active, although we just hired a new social manager, so it might
Good.
be getting more active here. It's just at Keeper Matchmaking.
Okay, thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. We'll
Thanks,
talk
guys.
soon.
Thanks, Dr. Burrowes. See everybody.
You're welcome. Bye, Cody. All right.